Welcome, Steelers Nation, to the Pittsburgh Steelers Syndicate. We are Steelers fans talking all things Pittsburgh Steelers. If you're a true black and gold devotee, then hit that subscribe button, ring that bell for all the latest content on your Pittsburgh Steelers. Hi, I'm Pittsburgh Owen, your voice from across the pond, your co-host on the Pittsburgh Steelers Syndicate. And today, guys, we're going to be talking about a question that is going to be in place until the start of the season for our Pittsburgh Steelers offense. Who is the next slot receiver for our Pittsburgh Steelers? So, guys, last season, obviously, we had Juju Smith-Schuster until he got down injured, and then Ray McCloud, much to the annoyance of some fans in Steeler Nation who did not rate Ray as a receiver in the slightest. So, who is going to be the new slot? Who is going to be the next person to try and be the outstanding slot receiver that the Pittsburgh Steelers need to take this offense to the next level after a pretty poor performance from our offense last season? Especially, when you watch all these NFL network programs like I was this morning watching NFL Total Access from last night, and everyone's saying the Steelers are not going to do anything this year because our offense is not up to the job. We have QB problems. Our offense is just not as good as our defense, and we're just not going to achieve anything this season, something I am absolutely fed up of. So I've stopped listening. So what are the qualities a good slot receiver needs? That's the first thing to start off with. So a good slot receiver needs the following things. Slot receivers need to be reliable with great hands. Not only do they receive a lot of targets, but they have to absorb a lot of contact when catching the ball in the slot area. Very true. They take the ball, close to the offensive line. They can take hits from linebackers, from safeties that have come up. So they need to be able to take that contact and hang on to that ball. Slippery hands, dropping the ball is not something that a slot receiver can do. And certainly if you look at the best slot receivers in the NFL, guys like Cole Beasley, Keenan Allen, Jarvis Landry, these are guys who hang on to the ball in contact. What else? Route running. A slot receiver runs just about every route you can think of. The more routes they perfect, the better. So we've got to have someone who's good at learning to run routes, who's got that experience, that knowledge, that NFL wide receiver ability to really become an outstanding slot receiver. So who is out there? Who are possibilities for our Pittsburgh Steelers? Let's take a look at the Pittsburgh Steelers currently way too early NFL draft chart. Depth chart, sorry. So we've got Deontay Johnson, Calvin Austin III, Gunnar Olszewski, Chase Claypool, Miles Boykin, Cody White, George Pickens, Anthony Miller, and Steven Sims. Behind them, you've got the likes of Tyler Snead, Vaughns. You've got a number of other options. So looking at those options, who are the most likely to be able to fit into that slot role? Who are the possible slot receivers that we could use? Now, obviously, after he was drafted, there was a lot of talk around Calvin Austin III. My one concern over Calvin Austin III is around his stature and his physicality. The guy's is quite small. I think he's 5'9". Has he got the physicality to be able to absorb the contact and play in that slot area? But there are a number of others there, I think, that are good possible candidates to be the Pittsburgh Steelers slot receiver. Or if we go for the slot receiver by committee approach, which is very much how San Francisco work their running back by committee, which is very effective for them. It's got them to one Super Bowl, got them to a verge of another Super Bowl. That is one way of looking at it. We could actually go slot receiver by committee, so rotate a number of different players through that position. Who are some possibles? That's what we want to know, Steeler Nation. Guys, who do you think? Drop me a comment below. Let me know who you think could be our next slot receiver. So the first guy I'm going to talk about is someone who didn't have the best of seasons last season, but I think is going to have a really good breakout season this season and get back to somewhere where he was during his rookie season. And that is Chase Claypool. Now, the other day, when Chase Claypool was interviewed, he said the following. So while coaches and players have touched on numerous options and avenues they might explore in seeking a more long-term answer to their slot position without Smith-Schuster, Claypool seems to invite the opportunity for him to be a big part of the equation. In fact, he doesn't want to be static. This is what Chase said. He said, "I like playing in all positions, but especially being able to play multiple positions in the same game. I don't like being in the same position all game." Told reporters Wednesday. So this was the Wednesday of the minicamp. I just like to, you can manipulate a defense. You can put a linebacker on me. If you have a corner, then there's a linebacker covering one wide receiver. Either way, it's a safety linebacker, some type of mismatch somewhere. So if you put me inside, it's a mismatch. That's definitely true. You put Chase on the inside as a slot receiver. Chase Claypool is a big guy. He's a big physical wide receiver. And yes, he didn't have the best of seasons last season, but if we go back to his rookie year, he did have a very good rookie season. We take a quick look at Chase Claypool's stats. Here are the stats for the 2 seasons that he has been with the Pittsburgh Steelers since he was picked in the second round from Notre Dame. So 2020, that rookie season, he played in 16 games. He had 62 receptions from 109 targets, 873 yards, where he averaged 14.1 yards per catch, 9 TDs, 84-yard long, 3 fumbles, one of those was lost. In 2021, the season where he gained a lot of criticism, more so for his antics and the drop off in his touchdown production. He played 15 games. He missed 2 games. He had 59 receptions, so slightly down on his receptions, 105 targets, but again, slightly down on his targets. 860 yards, so 13 yards down on the previous season, 14.6 yards average, 2 TDs. That's where he gets a lot of his criticism, 59 yards long. He also took part in some rushing plays as well. 10 rushing attempts in 2020, 14 rushing attempts in 2021. 2021, particularly, just under 100 yards, rushing with 6.9 yards per attempt. Chase Claypool, I think, is someone who could actually fulfill that slot receiver role. If we move him inside, I'm not saying for permanently, and I'm not saying all the time, but he's one person who could help, I think, do that slot receiver by committee approach. Plus, if you're varying the person that's playing there, it's going to be another thing that helps to confuse the defense. The Matt Canada system is about movement, it's about that pre-snap motion, it's about flexibility. And I think that is something we could do, really show through that slot receiver by committee approach. So Chase Claypool, I think, is definitely someone who could go in there. His speed, his size, his strength. I think, he's working on his catching. His catching is getting a lot better. I think over the middle there, he could cause a lot of damage to opposition defenses. Opposition linebackers would struggle to keep pace with him. He is a fast guy, and he's strong enough to be able to fight with linebackers. He's a big guy as well. So I firmly believe that Chase Claypool is one person who could play in that slot role. But who else, I hear you ask? Who else could possibly play in that slot position for our Pittsburgh Steelers? Well, another person I think that is another potential slot receiver is Anthony Miller. Now, Anthony Miller was a slot receiver for the Chicago Bears before he came to. Well, he actually was with the Houston Texans. Then he came to the then he came to Steelers. But when he was in Chicago, he was the slot receiver that Mitch Trubisky looked to an awful lot. It was kind of like a safety blanket for Mitch Trubisky. Now, the understanding that Anthony Miller has built up with Mitch Trubisky from his time in Chicago could be a very useful weapon for our Pittsburgh Steelers to use. So Miller, I think, could firmly be another option to come into that slot receiver by committee approach. If you look at that depth chart at this moment in time, Miller is listed behind George Pickens as a potential wide receiver, someone who could well make the depth chart depending on how many players the Pittsburgh Steelers take into their wide receiver this room this year, whether it's 5 or 6. So Anthony Miller, if he makes the roster, could be another one that is used in that sort of slot receiver by committee approach. Who else is there? I hear you say. Well, you've also got potentially, looking at that depth chart again, I think George Pickens. George Pickens is another. Now, I do believe that George Pickens will be more effective on the outside due to his speed, his strength, his ability to get deep, his ability to contort his body and jump in the air. So he contorts, he twists, he takes the ball, he then comes down on his feet and explodes with pace back up the field. So I think that's where he's going to be most effective. But that doesn't preclude him from being used in the slot position if we're going for a slot by committee approach. He's another one. Calvin Austin III has been mentioned, but I do, like I said, have my concerns over his physicality. Now, although he's a tight end, I firmly believe that Pat Freiermuth is someone who could well be a good option for the Pittsburgh Steelers as a slot receiver. He could play on that inside position. Over the middle, he is strong. He is dominant. He can fight for the ball. He's got excellent yards after catch. He's someone who has a desire to get to that first down marker and get beyond that first down marker. So I firmly believe as well that Pat Freiermuth could be another person that we put into that wide receiver, slot receiver by committee approach. Now, yes, it is nice to have one person who perhaps is designated as that wide receiver, a slot wide receiver, like we've had in previous years with Juju Smith-Schuster. But the committee approach, there's nothing wrong with that approach. Like I said to you, San Francisco have used that with their running backs to great effectiveness in that Kyle Shanahan system. Kyle Shanahan system, very similar to a Matt Canada system. Motion, movement, surprise, keeping the defense off kilter. That's the way he plays, and that's the way that Canada wants to play. So I honestly believe that that is a good option for our Steelers. So this slot receiver by committee could really work with Chase Claypool, Miller if he makes the roster, George Pickens, Pat Freiermuth. 4 guys who can all play there. and be effective. So, guys, let me know what you think. Drop me a comment down below. Who do you think will be the slot receiver? Do you think one slot receiver, or do you think it's a slot receiver by committee is a good idea? That we will vary who plays there to help keep the defense uncomfortable and unsettled. And guys, if you're still watching, hit that subscribe button. Come and join the Pittsburgh Steelers Syndicate. To your fans channel, the channel for you, the Pittsburgh Steeler fans out there in Steeler Nation. Thanks, guys, for listening, and have a great day. Here we go, Steelers. Come on.